Evening to all the people of Myanmar supporting the revolutionary movement. I would like to welcome you once again from our People's Co, that Way of Thought talk show. Myanmar is a country of diverse ethnic communities, and we are fighting for genuine democracy, that without the genuine federalism and without genuine political system, we have many problems that have been encountering many problems for the past over 6 decades. The fact that because of the prolonged the civil war and that conflict, and that instead of using that the funds of the state for development, for education, and the funds of the country or the public the public invests, the revenue has been used for civil war, leading to the poverty that the people of Myanmar are mired in. To make the situation worse, that fascist Myanmar military led by Myar has resorted to military coup instead of resolving their political problem with a political solution. They have used the force and the ammunition and weapons and ammunition to turn Myanmar back into the dark times. Now, today we'll be discussing from the perspective of ethnic minorities as an issue that needs to be taken into consideration during the Federal Union, and that we have our speakers will be participating in this talk show and sharing about their opinion. In this revolution, we have started by mobilizing ourselves that we need to think briefly about federalism, as well as to work briefly for the way forward for federalism as well. That all of us are that it is also important to think about the different federal unions forming by territory or by ethnic but communities. It's important that if you look at the past political issues of Myanmar, often the majority has oppressed the minority. There has been a marginalization and lack of recognition of the minorities, and they are part of the system, and that the kind of ethical violations have been a part and parcel of the system, and that's something we have exchanged among our various speakers in earlier sessions about the federalism as well. When you say minorities, it could be by minority based on ethnicity, it could be by minority based on religion or faith, it could also be based on the sexual orientation, among others, as well as a person with disabilities. It is important to think about the voice of different minorities, from ethnic to religion to the sexual orientation, as well as on personal disability. We need to take into consideration their voice, not only after the revolution has been achieved over. It is important that we take them into consideration and we listen to their voice while we are trying to build the new federal democracy union. It is important that we should be consistently observing and studying their opinions and their concerns as well. The minority that cannot be left behind in them. We'd like to share the ground situation.
CDM ဆွမ်းဆွမ်းတမန်ရေးရေးတောက်ပေါ့နော်ပါဝင်နေတဲ့ကတိကလေးစားရတဲ့ဆရာတူဖြစ်ပါတယ်နောက် speaker တူကတော့မူအေမာရီဖြစ်ပါတယ် Union of Karenni State Youth ထဲဖြစ်ပါတယ်နောက် speaker တူအနေနဲ့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကတော့ຫນွေဦးပုရုလင်းများကကိုတင့်စော်ဟိန်းပဲဖြစ်ပါတယ်ရှင်ဆိုတော့ဒီနေ့ညဆွေးနွေးဒီကျမတို့ရဲ့ကောင်းစဉ်အောက်မှာဥဆောင်ဆွေးနွေးသွားမယ့်သူကတော့ကျမဆွဆိုင်ကျွဲ Kachin State Civilian Movement ကဖြစ်ပါတယ်ရှင်ဆိုတော့ခါတိုင်းဆွေးနွေးမှုအစီအစဉ်လိုမျိုးပဲကျမတို့တွေ speaker တွေကိုမိကွန်းလေးတွေမေးသွားမယ် speaker တွေကိုမေးသွားတဲ့ပုံမှာမေးချင်တဲ့အချက်တွေရှိရင်တော့၎င်းကိုယ့်ရဲ့မှတ်ချက်တွေကိုထပ်မံဖြည့်ဆွတ်ပြီးဆွေးနွေးလိုတဲ့အချက်လက်တွေရှိရဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အခုဒီကျမတို့ရဲ့ Facebook live တော့၎င်းကျမတို့ရဲ့ webinar ထဲမှာပါဝင်နေတဲ့သူတွေအားလုံးကျမတို့ရဲ့ chat box ထဲမှာစာ ပေးပို့ခြင်းအပြင်ကျမတို့ကိုပါဝင်ဆွေးနွေးလို့ရတယ်လို့ဒီ webinar ထဲမှာပါဝင်နေတဲ့participant တွေအနေနဲ့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကတော့လက်ထောင်ထားခြင်းအပြင်ကိုမေးချင်တဲ့မေးခွန်းလေးတွေမေးလို့ရပါတယ်ခဏနေကြရင်ကျမတို့အချိန်ပေးမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ရှင့်ဆိုတော့ပထမဦးဆုံးကျမတို့ဒီ
So first of all, sorry that we have a technical difficulties and that so we like to first talk about what we talk about the importance of the federalism issue and that and when we talk about the importance of the minority issue, there should be taken into consideration in terms of federalism. So I'd like to first give the floor to Sister Nway, and that what is needed. And so we'd like to Mari, can you share with us like why is federal democracy important to Myanmar and what kind of standards and principles should it be based upon?
Sorry ba internet
oh sorry about that but sister the Siama Mari having a connectivity issue, so her connection is not stable. So let me invite another speaker first.
So
I would like to invite Dr. Nway that I would like to give you a chance here, give you a turn to answer that so that my question is that what is the role and the participation of minorities in the federal democracy issue of Myanmar as well, and that and then that so that what that we could when we talk about the role of the minorities, it could be about their concern, could be about challenges. Thank you. I have the question now. I have received a question. Yes, so thank you. What I would like to say is that so thank you for inviting me to do the People's Go that Way of Thought talk show and that inviting me as a panelist as well. I'm also honored to be part of this talk show program as well, and and also I like the topic of today. Topic of today is because you have used the word minorities. A minority is a term that that people will have can be in different interpretation. When we say minority is in a country, it can be in a society or in a country that is less than the half of the population is considered as minority. There could be women in that as well. There could also be people with disability, also the LGBTQ. They are all part of the minorities and different types of minority, and they can be interpreted in different ways as well. And when we say that, when we say minorities, I will be discussing from the perspective of the identity politics, and that here I will be talking about that I will also let others talk about the women issue, but I will be talking about from the identity politics perspective that I will be discussing. Just let me I would like to inform you as well. And Myanmar is not a country made of only one ethnicity. Myanmar is a country of diversity. We have people from different ethnic groups. We have also from people of different faith and religion. We have Myanmar is indeed a country of diversity. That's something we cannot deny. So in the federal democracy, that importance of the minorities has been is incredible. Has been incredible. The role they play has been important since the independence back in the 1940s until today. The role that has been played by the ethnic other minorities in Myanmar in politics and the economy has been incredible. It's always constructive. It is important to recognize it as such and also to appreciate it. What I would like to share here is I would like to divide into two parts. Firstly, about the politics, and the second is about that. Second part will be about but administrative. So before Myanmar gained independence in 1948, before the Republic of Union of Myanmar was established, there was a drafting of the constitution. The drafting of the constitution comes from the Palong Agreement. The Palong Agreement, the essence of it has made it very clear that the country is all that of diversity, and the Palong recognized and agreed the sovereignty of different ethnic states as well, and that because Palong recognized the justice system as well as on their, and that the countries do not have to give up on their and their sovereignty and their culture, their religion, and the tradition, a bit of faith, and the idea is to support it as well. That different ethnic communities, we make the agreement to live together as well. In other words, we can say that this is the coming together was the format Myanmar had established in signing the Palong Agreement. After that, after the Palong Agreement, we have the first conference in 1947. General Aung San in the Congress of FBFL, General Aung San made this speech, and that in this speech he had made it very clear that we have to select two. We need to select. Do we want to establish the unitary state, or do we want to form a union of a coming together, the union system? Union system, what he means by union system is the federalism. So unitary state is right now in the current context is not suitable. But what he prefers is that that it is important to have the union system or the coming together federal system. And based on the Palong Agreement, that they have developed and drafted the 1947 Constitution, the first Constitution of Myanmar. And while the political leaders were preparing their first Constitution, and General Aung San and other important political leaders were all assassinated before Myanmar gained independence. That at that time, U Chanton, the legal expert who was leading the constitutional drafting process, and that what they did, they changed everything. They changed the federal version that General Aung San was leading, and then instead of the federalism and the union system of coming together, they changed to the unitary system of the union system. They got it, and that's why when the federal constitution, came out, that people, ethnic communities, have been very angry and frustrated with it as well. And that, and also that's the first part. Second reason is that because of the Palong commitments have never been implemented by Apple, and that's why even just after it gained independence, we are seeing the first insurgent movement by the current community, and then that by Mon and other communities too. And then again, we also see the Burmese Communist Party, or the BCP, that are came into action as well. So within 10 years of independence, Myanmar has been deeply embedded in armed conflicts in different parts of Myanmar. While there are insurgency movements breaking out, at the same time, AFPFL, the political power of the AFPFL has started to crumble, and AFPFL itself has divided into two, as in the clean and consistent part. So when the AFPFL party divided in two in 1958, as you all know, General Nway, that later who will become the dictator of Myanmar, was given a power, and he gained the power, and that when they formed the caretaker government, a military government, and then they used the pretext of the rule of law to oppress politicians, as well as injure them, kill them, torture them, and destroy the political system. After that, in the 60s, that politician who gained power and formed that founded government and parliamentary government. However, he has used religion and ethnicity as a politician too. He politicized the religion. He had made promises that Buddhism will become the religion of the country. So as promised, he made the Buddhism the religion of the national religion, and making more stability to the political situation, and leading to. And then while there was a Tongji Congress held to review the constitution, there was in 1962 military coup happened. Since 1958, that military, although they didn't really conducted the coup. At the same time, the military has overtaken the power and the political system, and that military officers, senior officials in particular, have taken to replace the civil servants in different important parts of administrative mechanisms, and that when they know that if they are in a key important positions, they can control and govern the country, and they know that, and they use they use the political issues and the grievances of the ethnic minorities to cause the military coup. And what I would like to hear summarize the key point is that the military coup has happened, and the insurgency happened because of the lack of recognition, lack of holding on to the adherence to the commitment of the political community, and that has opened the doors to the military to slip in and take over as well. If we look back on the history of Myanmar, there are two important things that first is the supremacy of the military in the politics, and that needs to be changed. Second is that equal participation of the minorities, including ethnic, religious, and others, is also limited. And these 2 points are interdependent to each other, because without recognizing the minorities, there will be armed conflict. And with the armed conflict going on, then that will also build the influence and power of the military. That Myar and other military leaders, even before they conducted the coup, and they have refused to leave the politics, and they often say they promise, or they often say the military will leave the politics if there is peace in Myanmar. And that also shows that for the military to leave the politics, for Myanmar to get the peace in Myanmar, it is if they know about the situation of the differences between the minorities and majority in Myanmar, and they are using that these problems and political issues to build their power. So that if we want military to be totally excluded from the politics in Myanmar, then it is important to have peace with the minority. It is important to have good relations with the minorities in Myanmar. If we cannot do that, then we don't know what will happen, and that it is also important that we need to be able to remove the military as institution only when there is a equal and egalitarian political agreement between different communities of Myanmar, between majority ethnic minorities, then Myanmar will not be able to overcome the military, and that will lead to absolute collapse, and that Myanmar could become a state. So something we must do is in Myanmar context is that it is important to have a strong solidarity and unity among minorities and majorities in Myanmar. For the minority and majority to reach the kind of solidarity, we have the past 70 years of conflict between among the minorities and among the majorities. Minorities feel that majorities have never kept their word, never implemented their commitment. It is important. I don't blame anyone. I'm not pushing the blame on anyone. It is important to look back on the history. If we look at all the promises that we have made in the past, we have made a lot of commitments to get political power, and however, once the political power was in the hands of majority, they never had implemented the commitment. So it is important to do trust building. It is important to do that systematically, and trust building is a major challenge, and that because it's a major challenge, we cannot ignore it. It is a challenge, yes, but we have to implement it as well. Like the saying goes, when there is a will, there is a way. And if we can bring together the majorities, including the Burma, as well as the key stakeholders, the NUG, the SGRPH, the political leaders with the political frontline and different institutions with them, they need to show their genuine political will. And genuine political will here is extremely important. If there is a genuine political will, we can overcome this challenge. And that they should not feel that we are the majority. We are at the upper hand, and we have the upper hand, and we can ignore the minority. If we do that, we don't do trust building with a genuine political will, then it will remain a major hurdle to overcome. So it is important for the majorities to build a strong ethnic alliance relations, and that in this, it is important to think about this building alliance relationship, not only for the Spring Revolution, but over the future of the failing of the Federal Union. That will bring us closer to the victory, and that trust building and alliance relationship building is extremely important. This is something we have to do despite the challenges. This is what I would like to share as a part one of the discussion. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Okay,
Hello?
Okay.
We can hear you now.
Sorry,
I'm sorry. The voice is interrupted. The voice is interrupted. The voice of the speaker is interrupted. So in later, when we are going to build up the Sim since 1947, we have been preparing, but then because of the assassination, and then from the federal version to the non-promising issues and political turmoil are happening right now. And then Saya has discussed about this. And then on the other hand, and in this revolution, like we can call like the so building of the trust between the ethnic minorities, and it is important that they have the political willingness in order to build the genuine federalism. So we need to have the political rights equally. So this has been discussed earlier. And therefore, may I invite Hein? Hein is from Nway. He is a Burmese guy, and then right now he is now in Karenni state, and then working, and then also leading in the GSC. And if we have looked back within 2 years, have you been prepared in order to do this, or what kind of things have been pushing you to do this? And then at the same time, right now, we are going to have a federal democracy country, and we are on the way to it. So for our country, what kind of standards that do we need for our country? So it is your time now. The floor is yours, and can you please discuss further on this? Thank you very much. My name is Hein, and first, if I have to answer the questions, I am in Karenni state right now. In order to do this, I never had that ambition. And because of the revolution, starting from 1st February 2021, our country has been in darkness. And then in this revolution, we have been in this, and then we have like Federal FM, and then after that, and then we have done the revolutionary work. And I didn't have the ambition to do this in the past. And what I would like to do is that just to have like a simple young person's dream, that I will go back to PhD and then kind of like set up new schools, and I'll go to the academic life, and then live peacefully in my own plantations. And was my intention. But right now, I am doing everything which is related to the revolution. And so I have experienced something which I never had in my life, like bullets, and then also like firefighter jets coming in. And then I have never heard about this in the past. And then as a Burmese person, as a Burmese people, ethnicity, and then with my brothers, Karenni brothers, the trust building for the revolution, what we are going to do, and then how are we going to do this, and being Burmese or not being Burmese, it is not my choice. And then I have been born from a Burmese family and then became a Burmese ethnicity. So Tint is a Burmese. Based on that, because of what we have and then what we are. We had a wrong history looking back at them, and then within this revolution, we are doing a lot of things about the when I set up the Federal FM, I do not know anything about this. This is what my belief, and then based on that, I've been doing this. In order to have a federal state, what do we need? So identity politics, because within these 60, 70 years, we have been a lot of debate about the identity and been in conflict about it. And then I do not want to discuss about this, but what I would like to say is that our basis, what we cannot bargain. So for example, we have been born, and then if a person is born, like the rights of that person, we have to be able to guarantee the rights of the person who was born. And then they have to have the right to life, right to education and life to everything. Rohingya, Kaya, or Kaya, or whoever it is, whoever LGBT, just remove the identity, and based on the policy, if you are a human being, the rights of that person has to be accorded and then accommodated there. And with this policy that we have, and we talked about like the use of latrines, and then like latrines for LGBT people, latrine for person with disability, these kind of things. Without talking about the identical politics, like human rights, human dignity, people have the rights for this. And based on that, like maybe it can be arguable, but we have to be able to practice democratic principles. And then in order to become a federal democracy, only when we have this, what happened in the past, the history, we can take lessons from them. And then within a short period of time, and then in the coming period, what we wanted to see, what we wanted to build. Based on that, if we go to federalism, coming together, or a confederate, whatever, build up your country or whatever, like this policy has to be in hand, and then we have to be open-minded about, and initially I would like to discuss about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much. Identity of a country and politics. Dr. Tony also explained about their rights, and then individually. So for having a federal democracy, like human identity, and then everyone needs to have dignity, and then these kind of things are needed. These kind of principles, these standards are needed, and then it has been discussed here. And then Myanmar is, everyone talks about a federal democracy. So people are studying about the federal democracy, and then they know. And then in most countries, when countries have democracies, some countries have federalism and democracy together. And then in the, like as you said, or as Sia said earlier, politically, so the sharing power has to be in it. And then when we talked about democracy, it is about everyone's rights, everyone's rights is being guaranteed in the Constitution, and this has to be in it. And then what Sia has discussed, as well as what Sia Hein has said, when we looked at this information and these facts, what is needed for our country, a federal system, is what I could reflect from here. So in order to continue discussing, I would like to say, and then whether you talked about human identity or identical politics, and for our minorities, either minorities or so in this in this revolution, like the minorities' rights have been discussed and also considered. How can the minorities' rights to be recognized and protected, like not in other countries, but then within our country in this revolution? How can the minorities' right be recognized and protected? Thank you very much for the chance to discuss. So we always talked about it in this. So the whole country has been in darkness, but then on the other hand, this is the good thing out of all the bad things. So when we, like right now, so people can learn about how the minorities has been suffering all these years since in the beginning of the revolution, before it has changed to the armed revolution, since it was in the demonstration at stage. Then we have this kind of like Rohingya cannot be even be used in the past, was used the name a derogatory name Bengali, and then right in the past, even self-identity cannot be talked about, and now this state has been recognized and then being respected. But then in this situation, is this enough? No, this situation has not been enough. So this is what we could say at present, because what we have learned is that the movement of our country, minorities and majority, we have come to that we need to have understanding between that. But then this revolution, so it is not just removing the military dictators like Myanmar, but then our like mentality has been need to be changed as well. But then it's like what is the thorns in our heart needs to be taken out. But then we cannot be blamed at this moment. We cannot blame at this moment, because the whole life, like 50, 60 years old people, they have been living under dictatorship. They were born under dictatorship since they were born 1960, 65, 1970. They were born at that time, and then they were brought up under the dictatorship. They were in this system, and therefore, what like the society, the culture influences and then the education that they have received. If we looked at them, then our education in this curriculum, based on that, we have kind of like have this. But then when we have been adult, when we looked at this curriculum, it is just only based on a religion, a belief of an ethnicity. But then it is not just looking at any identity or diversities of anything. And then it has not been given any of the so it is just only based on the supremacy of an ethnicities. And then the dictators are using education as a tool to influence people. So the first thing is that the minorities to be recognized, the rights of the minority to be recognized and also respected, the thinking, the opinions, if we talked about, we cannot do it right away. This has to be in the long-term programs. And then what we can do right now is just only workshop and awareness training at this moment. And what we can do is that when we are talking about the minorities' rights, an individual has the rights since they were born. And so something like, if you have these rights can be given only when we give it. like everyone's rights is not there. Everyone has these rights already, not that you have to give them. So the powerful people, like if kind of like rejected and then deny the rights of the minorities. It is the reason why we are in this situation. Like we are powerful people, we are the majority. If we are doing this, then our historic teaching will not be only affecting the minority, but then it will affect the majority as well as the history of the country as well. And we have got this historic lessons very much. So we don't need to talk about it in details. So when the recognition is needed because of this revolution, it is from our heart, it is needed to go to that this is coming from our heart. And then how do we do this? How do we protect the minorities' rights? How do we recognize it? And then how do we do it? Before we do this, at first, as I have explained earlier, we need to have political will. We need to have the right political will. If we have the right political will, and then all the stakeholders, all the key stakeholders who are leading this revolution, and then they need to have the right political will. And if we have to talk about it openly and honestly, the leaders who are leading where we are leading is like just to remove to remove online dictators, and then but then the minorities' rights, like this program or this arrangement has not been strengthened, and then either in CRPH, NUCC, or NUG, it has been not been strengthened that much. And then within these 2 years, like the activities, this is something very important, but then we need to consider it carefully and have to do it with efforts. And then in our country situation, if we have looked at it in 1947 in Pillow Agreement, if we looked at the agreements, so it is based on General Aung San, based on this, and then the agreement based on this has been very good for our country as a basis. However, in the real implementation, when this person is not there and everything collapsed, and then we have seen this, we have witnessed it, we have to be aware of this. It is reason why in this revolution, taking this into account of this lesson in the past, like the agreements without not to go back. It has not to be based on individual, but then this has to be institutionalized, and institutionalized political construction has to be there. And then according to our politics, according to our culture, individualism is very much influential. And so democracy and individualism is like totally different. So it is not just our culture, but then Asian culture is not very much in line with democratic value. It is the reason why if we looked at the Asian countries' democratic, we have to see that it is not in line with democracy. It's kind of like partially there, but then it's not complete democracy. But then in this situation, if we looked at the young people, so the civilian government, like we have the rights, kind of like generations who have been, who have received education, and then the opinion of these young people, the thinking of young people, they have gone another level in culture based on these people, based on these young people in the political culture, individualism instead of the individualism, then politics based on the institutionalization, then it is important that we have the right political will, and then based on the institution, we need to build up a political construct. And then right now we have Federal Charter Part 2. What we have seen is that interim administration is there, but then in the minority, like political representation in the like building of the structure. It is not just enough with the federal structure. It is the reason why interim administration law, it needs to be enacted. And then the rights of the minorities, federal rights, it has to be mentioned in the constitution exactly. And then when we have to have this law, this interim constitutions, when drafting it, and then when the final constitution is being drafted, all those people who need to be there is kind of like selective, like arm length is not okay. And then if we do this again, we will be troubling our country's future. So when we looked at other countries in the minorities rights, and then other laws being enacted, sometimes other laws, some of the country, they have the right political will, and then it is something, the constitution that is being done, but then the implementation is weak. And then this law are enacted, but then the rights of the people, the rights of the minorities, in order to be there, then the institutional reforms needs to be done, and it is needed to do. When we talked about the institution, right now, judiciary sector, it has to be independence, the executive, and then so it has to be, and then the influential of the government, for example, in 2008, and so in some other country, we have seen that the minority rights monitoring committees, councils are in place, and these institutions, some of the have some authority, and they are independent from the government. This kind of institutional reform. On the other hand, we have the laws, and then the three and on the other hand, the independent bodies, minority right protective institutions are to be set up independently. And then this is something to an extent. The rights of the minority can be implemented and protected to an extent. If we have to look back under 2008 constitution, minorities are not in the parliament, but they are there, but then representation. And then in politics, the minorities' voices are not heard, are not being implemented. For example, like in democracy, everyone knows that like the majorities of the majorities are voting, and then like like the minority voices like can be only voice one, and then the real implementation is not there. It is the reason why today, when we are coming to a future federal democracy, the minorities cannot be abandoned, and then they need to be taken into account. It is not just be there, but then meaningful cooperation and participation has to be considered. This participation, this has to be representative, and then the voices of the minorities should always be in the policy and decision making, politics decision making. It is not there in the past, but then there is no influences in the past about the minorities, but then they have to just stand and look. It is the reason why during this the revolution period, this is what we could do. The laws, the institutional reform can be done. In the long term, educational reforms in the democratic standards, then it has to be acknowledged, and then humanities, and then empathy. So these kind of the mutual assistance, these kind of things, like in the classroom, children needs to be kind of like given this kind of education, and diversities are to be respected, and our curriculum to be in this way as well. Employment opportunities as well, without having any discrimination. This needs to be done only then. So we don't have it anymore, and then you and I are no difference, but we are all same together. Only then we will have the same opinion. It is reason why, in conclusion, what I have to say is that first, like the right political will on both sides, from the people, from the leading groups, it needs to be well prepared. Like the recognition of the minorities and then the respect of the minorities needs to be well prepared. And then and what we have to think about is that constitution has to be built, and then there should be institutional reform about this. And then in the future, and social political issues and education and everything, in order to be all inclusive and in order to be divergent, we need to be it needs to be there. Only then we will see a future federalism that we want. Thank you very much. This is my second part in discussions, and I would like to end it here.
Thank you, Sia, for making the points, and these are incredible, and these are all very important political analysis. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for the important recommendations that you have made. As you say, by the way, it is important for the and that you see also, you're also pointing out the weaknesses in terms of political leadership, namely NUG and the NUCC, that CRPH. So thank you for the reminder, and I'm sure that the political leaders will be hearing the recommendation that you have raised. That and you also make the very valid point that it is important to guarantee the minority rights in Myanmar, that it should not be based on identity politics. It should not be based on heroism or iconoclasm, but we should need to go beyond the identity politic, and it should be, the politics should be institutionalized, and it should be institutionalized politics. And that's also a very important point that you have made, so for us to be aware about. So thank you for the point as well, because I also feel incredibly encouraged to hear this comment, because like Myanmar, if you look at the many of the Asian countries, often it is based on that identity politics, and we follow on the political identity of a particular leader or a person, and that so that can also be that we are in Asian country, like many others, we readily accept that it is important to be aware about it. It is important to have it is important to have certain provisions guaranteeing the rights of the minorities explicitly mentioned in the constitution, to ensure that we'll be able to overcome that. Leadership will be able to get away from the political that kind of political leadership. So thank you, for making the point. And then now I would like to give the time to call Hein as a Burma youth that you had, and then we have seen that there will be we talk also about it as well, that so there were also some the statements, the proposal that there should be a Burma state, and that is something like like the Kachin, Kachin, and Chin have all the ethnic states. There should be an ethnic Burma state, and that idea of establishing a Burma state, and that so most of the Burma youth could have been shocked by that demand of a Burma also should have a state. So what do you think? What do you think are the opinions of the different Burma community? So that how does your political community feel? If you look at it from the political perspective, if you are looking at from the that is that's what, and then what do you think? How do you see that proposal going about establishment of a Burma state? I would like to give the floor to Tint to respond to this particular question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, in Myanmar, if we look at the current situation, current our country, I would like to respond to two parts, and that I would like to go about the core, the center, there's the central of the union that has the most that of it, and then the ethnic and then the ethnic states as well. So if you want to make major changes, and then it is important that Burma, the majority, needs to be part of it. I think it is also depends on the political maturity of the Burma, and that as well as that that others as well, and that and it is also important that to what extent they feel the spirit of a brotherhood and camaraderie towards other ethnic minorities, other minorities. I think that's important. When we look at it from that perspective, well, that when we look at the military council, the military, and that the fascist military, that's what we are afraid of, because to eradicate the dictatorship system, it is important that for the core to be part of the movement, because along the border we have been an armed conflict along the border as well. Although there has been an armed resistance, we had not been able to. They had not been able. They don't even know. They don't. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't really destabilize the military, because that doesn't have impact on the central core as well. So for them, so long as they can control the Burma majority, then they are fine. So if we look back on the history, I think so if we look at all these, what has happened in the past, I think we don't get much of we cannot rely much on the census data, but it will be, I would say, like, it's not conclusive, but in my opinion, so like for example, like that I am that I have like 11% Chinese, but I consider myself a Burma, and then I consider myself that I'm entitled to the rights that I get that the Burma get in the central mainland area. So before the 2021 in Burma area, we never heard about the artillery. We don't know what the explosion of 120 millimeter looks like. We have never seen a landmine. We have never heard of an explosion of the landmine. That was the privilege of the Myanmar. We have never known that the soldiers can just came into your village and attack you. We never had that kind. That was the privilege of Burma. That was the privilege of being in Burma. We never have to live through that. And that in a way, that also is our weaknesses, because we have been brainwashed into this religious that nationalism. Let's talk about for example, like the issue of the Rohingya, and that we didn't know about that. It's hard to say about the genocide as well. In the 1997, I couldn't even to be very very clear, before the in 1997, before 2007, I couldn't say Rohingya that we were there. Therefore, that we didn't have exposure, we didn't know about that, and that and if we look back on that, if we are in a way that if you were to look at it from the black and white, from the truth, and that the right and the wrong, we were on the side of the wrong, because we didn't have the maturity, we didn't have the exposure, we didn't have the knowledge for them. Is that something that will remain with me, through my life? That the brainwash, being a Burma and being brainwashed, having the Burma identity, and the brainwash we have to live through the religion, and that and compared to other people, that I had the opportunity to be able to get education, to be able to learn about it. But that said, I don't understand about that. I didn't really have that. I was on that, in 2010, in 13, we were singing the song that in a way that is a song that's commemorate or that honors the Burma identity. We were happily singing that song that back in the days, and that identity kind of it's a deep-rooted identity is there. But 2021 has given us a chance to shed light on that, and to know that we now know that this is the propaganda. That's what we have been brought up, brainwashed into. And that, before, the fighting happened only in the Shan state, okay. But now that it has become a challenge for us as well. And that what happened, now that we are now starting to think about, okay, if we have a Burma state, what will happen? What will it look like? We are now thinking about it. We start talking about it. In my personal opinion, that I think that there should be a Burma state. I think we must have one, but how do we form it is also a question. The means of forming a Burma union, Burma state is important as a federal unit because it is important to need to think about it from the that population, because there is also the issue of the identity politics, and like saying that because there are also concerns that concerns of Burma that their ethnicity, their race will be, their identity will be lost also. So it is important for us to think here that we need to discuss, and what our opinion, our belief is that these changes, we need to discuss these changes, and we have seen it is important to that right offenders, for example, like it is that right offenders are not those who get an award. It is for being a human right offender. If you are defending your life, you're sacrificing your life, and then they are the right offender. If you look at this revolution, all the people who are there fighting that, they are right offenders. They are defending their rights. They are defending their right to self-determination, and these are the right offenders. They are defending the rights. We are sacrificing our lives to be able to defend our rights, and because we believe in the right to self-determination as innate, that as a right that we are born with, and that if the people of Myanmar understands that, if the people of Myanmar and believe in that, then we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to protect their rights as well. It is important. The change comes from the people, that it is important for the people to hold the politicians and that political leaders accountable. Politicians should follow the people. And that's what happened with the General Sen, is that they think that is what we know. They think that is right. But, what we are saying, that they can kill me at any time, they can kill me, but the work that I have done, the concept, the commitment, they cannot kill my commitment. They cannot kill what we believe in or the causes we took up for. So I think it is important, whether we go for the federal state or confederate, or that when we go into different sovereign state, whatever it is, that it is important for all of us to have the basic rights, and it is important for us, all of us, to agree on what are the basic principles and values for all of us. If you're born here, you don't have a choice. As a person, you are being born. It is important as a person, you need to have the rights, that you have the right to self-determination. You have the right to be able to govern yourself, to be able to manage the resources you own, and these are the basic rights we need to have. That's something I think all of us need to understand as basic human rights, and the basic rights that we are getting. Once the people of Myanmar, the majority, that people understand that these are their rights, that they will protect their rights. They will sacrifice their rights, and they will be the one. They will, in a way, embody the change that they want to see. Thank you for sharing. And that the point that you have raised are incredible, and then it is also you're also sharing from your lifelong learning experience. It is important because we learn from our own life experience. It comes from our own experience, and you'll be able to see. So it is incredible. It's incredible sharing, and that thank you for sharing your points, and then also were raised as well. Yes, like you are saying, to give you a comment, so I come from whenever I meet your friends from Tint State and Kachin State, and we often say that, well, the coup, although despite this the challenges, then it's good now. Now that people are young, we are joking that now the taste of running for your lives, or the taste of in a way that always to be having to fight for it, always to having to the sacrifice we made for the right to extermination now is now shared by everyone in Myanmar, and that for example, like most people all of them has we are saying that in the Christianism that that there are missionaries, and to try to promote the religion of Christianism. They will say that now we are doing we are the missionaries for not for Christianity but for federalism. Is a very just such a constructive joke, because after the coup, despite the oppression, despite the violence, we have an opportunity now to see the political issue as a problem, that major important political issues that we need to resolve. And now that we all of us understand the importance importance of political political equality needs to be important. For the participation is important to ensure a genuine federation union in Myanmar, and that's something a common agreement everybody accepts and acknowledges. And so it is in a way as there is indeed a silver lining to this horrible military coup. This gives us the coup is bad. It is deadly, but it also gives us an opportunity to build a better future. That whether we call it the new Federal Union of Myanmar, a federation or a confederation, it is what is important is that it is important to take into consideration the context and geopolitical situation of Myanmar. But what we want is a recognition for all of us. If there is a recognition for all of us, that will also mean less political problems and issues in Myanmar, and that's something also we can also take into consideration as well. That's an important point for us to consider. Now, we have been ongoing for quite some time. We are now almost at the end. I would like to give another round of questions to our speakers, and then I will pass over the comments and the comments as well as on the questions I've received in the chat box. I also see hands raised as well, so we hear you and we see your hands, and we'll be inviting you shortly to ask your questions or participate in person. So I would like to give another turn to Dr. Nway. You said that in the Spring Revolution, it is important to make sure we push the military out of the political sphere once and for all. That's the important part, as you said, you mentioned that in while we are building for the democracy, that it is that there are also people who say that we should get rid of the military first, and then we talk about the minorities later. There are some consideration like that as well, especially inside among the Kachin community, and there are a lot of people who will say that not just they say that there are also the political changes as well. We are also talking about the there are some social change and then ideological change as well. That last year, one of the major debate was that that female cannot become fathers or that religious leaders. There was a campaign rallying women to have an equal opportunity, and then there was something Kachin communities and say that and that that this is not as important. I think in this revolution, let's talk about the gender issue later on. Let's talk about the gender equality. If you were to talk about this right now, they were saying that, are you Dylan? Are you working for the military? That was the kind of feedback we received. So now then there are also people who say that we should focus on getting rid of the military first and think about the other issues like minority that as well. So how will you respond to them? What will be your response? That there are those who say that minority issues we can deal with later on, that we should focus on getting rid of the military. Yes, you're not wrong that a lot of people say that we should focus on the common enemy, which is the military, and then we will deal with the rest next after on. Well, if those people who say that, I think if you look generally speaking, it seems like they're saying what they're saying sounds about right, but in reality, that's very dangerous. That's very risky, and that's a totally wrong concept, because looking at the political context of Myanmar, even before independence, as I have discussed earlier, the Palong Agreement was signed, Palong Commitments were made, but in reality, while there has been an issue with implementation, the Palong commitments were not complied with or implemented. We look at the political history, and I have no dislike for favor nepotism for anyone. But if we look at the political history, there are in the 1988 political uprising, you had a lot of ethnic resistance movement who supported them. There were Minor Law agreement among others as well. But in reality, the commitments were not upheld because of those who are in the revolution, and that only because there was also only a minority know about it as well, and that a lot of people know about the Myanmar agreement, and that some people also have heard about the, that Panama agreement. They didn't know about the essence of it as well. So I think it is important, even then with the political roadmap, if this is happening, then let's say that we fight the military, and there's okay that are we going to discuss everything after we have get rid of the Myar line? If things are what are the what if there are the problems? What will happen? That now that that let's say that Myar line had the coup, and the coup has given us a chance to join in and participate in the revolution, and now we have armed groups everywhere in Myanmar, and there has never been an armed conflict before, but if we look at the current context, they don't have a unitary chain of command in the military. The nature of the military is, although we do not accept it as a military needs to have a military nature, there should be a strong chain of command. There was a unified chain of command. However, the problem in Myanmar is that all these revolutionary forces in Myanmar, they are fighting the revolution different ways, and that they do not have a unique chain of command. They only have that when you have such a scattered armed organization across Myanmar without a political agreement, that could turn into something really bad that will really push Myanmar into into civil war as well. And Myanmar become a country. Myanmar could become a tenant to this country controlled by the warlords, and this is something we do not want. And that's why political it is important for all to have a political commitment, and that's why we need to focus on it as well. Like I was saying earlier, that okay, Myar line is the key, and that it is important to fight against that as well. But it is, fighting the military and that fighting, promoting the rights of the minorities are two sides of the coin that they must come together. So if there is an inclusion of the minority, there is political participation of the minorities, that will contribute to the better achievement as well. This revolution needs a strong, solid alliance relations. It's important how important it is that the most important, I said before, the alliance system is incredibly important. If you have a strong solidarity among the allies, then we can achieve the end goal quickly as well. And that will also help us to be able to go for the rebuilding in a better way as well. That if that now that we are standing together, if we have because we have a common enemy, and what happened, there is no more common enemy. If without a political agreement, then what will happen to the agreement? So right now we seems to have some sort of unity to an extent, to a level, because of the common enemy. But if there is no more any common enemy, then that unity will collapse. And that's a lesson we can learn, not only from Myanmar history, but also from the history around the world. So we cannot let that kind of situation happen again. It is important to get a political agreement, to build a political landscape that will give us a situation to move forward after the conflict as well. It is also important to be able to establish justice as well. That only then that we be able to stop the sense of impunity, where those who perpetrated crimes and those who are they are above the law can be held accountable for the acts and for the deeds that they have committed. Only when there is we can stop the cycle of impunity, then we'll be able to bring people to accountable. For example, in the 2008 constitution of the military, it says that the law cannot be there is a provision that said that the crimes before 2008 cannot be held accountable for, and that when there is a sense of impunity, they become even more daring, and they would violate any crimes that because they have the impunity. If we look back on the history, we had a democracy government in the 2015, 2020. In the Myanmar, there was in the parliament, there was a free from the Muslim. Genocide had happened in Myanmar. And if we do not talk about, ethnic minorities or the other minorities now, then even after we get rid of Myar line, the current military leader, then Myanmar will go into a civil war, or a country of different warlords and different infightings, and that is a different form of what we're talking about. It is important that we try together to win this revolution. At the same time, it is also important to build that political consensus, political agreement, while we are trying to, promote social change, ideological change, it is important to change the mindset of the youth, but also of the different generation as well. If we are just focus on the getting rid of military and Myanmar first, and then we'll deal with the rest later, that's not practical. And if we do that, we are blindly jumping into the fire. So that will be, I would say, a very bad move for Myanmar. So it is important to look back that so I also have the established a minority act institute, because there are many organizations fighting against the military, and Myanmar conflict and Myanmar politics will no end, and that there won't be stability or peace in Myanmar just because we remove the military power, because minority issue is a major political issue, and if we cannot resolve the issue, then Myanmar will continue to be in a conflict as well. So it is important to address all the issues by the key important stakeholders at the same time, and that's how important that is.
ကျမစီမှာဗျမိခွန်းတွေလည်းတော်တော်တက်နေပြီပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့ဒီမိခွန်းတွေ
Right
လည်း
now, I have some of the question here, and then so with regards to the discussions that you have, and then I'm going to ask, but then we have the time constraint, and then you can kind of like take it. So the last question that I would like to ask is that in building up the federal democracy for the minorities, including women and young people, like what is the role of them? And then within those states, in order to protect the rights of the minorities, and then how do we do this? And then to what extent it is important? It has been included in the earlier discussions, but then I would like to invite you to talk about it in more details. And we have these comments, and then in the chat box as well, we have some questions. That's why Koten or Hein, can you please answer to this as well? It is the floor is yours.
ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီမှာရှိတဲ့လူတိုင်းဈေးဝယ်ပူကြမှာတင်တယ်လေ
So I guess that you will be kind of like do shopping. So
supermarket တွေမှာမဟုတ်ဘဲနဲ့ကျွန်တော်
it's not in the supermarket, but then you might have been in the vendors around your places. So something like sometimes you do a bargain when you are also in the political dialogue. Sometimes you make a bargain. So this kind of things, this is something that we need to think about, and then this is not something we can bargain here. The minorities, the majorities, whatever Rohingya or person with disability or LGBTIQ people, these people are the rights of a citizen. The minorities' rights are to be protected. These are not to be bargained. And within this country, we have to think about this. So we have like more than 500 ethnicities, and we have a policy as well. I'm not going to use that like races. I'm going to use ethnicities. So we have more than 500 ethnicities, and then these ethnicities are kind of like being part of the this and then PWD and then LGBT are there as well. So we need to be there. So if we do something, we have to be going with others as well. When we guarantee the citizens' rights, the rights of the minorities have to be also accorded. And then only when this diversity will be embraced there, and then the beauty of the diversity will be embraced. And then when we talked about it, and when we have some of the conflicts there, and then the diversities become our enemy. So it is the reason why we all need to work together. It is not just like one after another. This cannot be bargained. This cannot be bargained. And then we have to work together in one and at a sitting. And this is what I would like to say. And sometimes my question, since we were young, we have been talked about lie, we have been told lie, like our country is going to be separated or our country is going to be in darkness. It is reason why to be protected. What happens if the country is in pieces as well? Why? What is going to happen? My question, Gotule will become a state, Karenni will become a state, the Shan will become a state, so Kachin will become a state. So we have like so many countries, so many confederates. What is going to happen there? And then I want to ask these questions. So since we were young, like we have been told about lies, and this is kind of like if we put this, we have been told many times, and then it is in our mind all the time. If we listen to a song repeatedly, then this song will be in our mouth again. So if we have heard about this political lies repeatedly since we were young, then we assume that these were correct. Like if our country is in pieces, what is going to happen if it is this country in pieces? That will become good. So people who wants to have a country, then get a country. People who wants to work together, get together. So like Karenni state, like Karenni minorities, and LGBT Karenni, they will have their own policies. And in that country, there could be accessibility, LGBTIQ will be kind of like together. There is no discrimination about this. I think that this is like the people's life there and the dignity. If there is nothing there, LGBT are being discriminated, minorities are being discriminated against, the Muslims are being discriminated, and then like those who kind of like believes in spirits are being discriminated. So if these are together and then in a state together, this state is going to be like hell. So we need to question what we have been through, like LGBTIQ, for example. Like in the past life, maybe you have raped somebody, so you have become LGBT in this life. This kind of mindset, this kind of things, we need to question ourselves. We need to question what is going on with us. What is there? And then how are we coming together? And we can live together or not. So socio-economics and then everything. So we can go together if it is there. This is in our time that we need to work on. So if we know about this, then you are responsible about this. For example, right now, what I would like to say is that, for example, Karenni, Shan, Kachin, or Kotule, for example. So how they are using the so it's a country being attacked. It is not. It is a civil war. It's like fighting a country. So we need to understand about this. So we have seen this in our own eyes. Some people have sacrificed their life. How do I say that? You will only understand only when you see it and feel it. You are in a battlefield and you understand it. Otherwise, you will not understand it. right now in the central part of the country in Sagaing. You know about this. Why Sagaing? So it's kind of like fighting a country. Like, so they are also planning how Yaw will be constructed as a federal state. So there has been discussions about this. So in other places as well, youth are considering about it, questioning this, and this is something could be good or bad. It is in our hand, and how are we going there to a federal democratic country? This is in our hand. Are we going to have a federal state or confederate state? It has to be in our head. We need to ask questions. We need to challenge. This is the beginning. So 70 years of problems will be sorted out. And this, when these are all gone, and then so two countries will kind of like fight, and that is, and so this is what I have to talk about. And then in conclusion, in summary, what I am like, whether it's the majority or the minorities, in the minorities as well, maybe like people with different religions. Freedom of religions, and people who have different religions, person with disabilities, LGBTIQ people. For them, when we are doing this, it is not something we can bargain. Only after that, let's do it. But then we need to have a mainstream it. And then, so when we are working on a federal democratic state, these standards, this value has to be accompanied as well. And then in conclusion, I would like to talk about this. So this is in the during the night. I am in the middle of the village, so that this is what I would like to talk in short. So thank you very much, and this is something very good. And then in our program, so tonight discussions, our knowledge, our mindsets, with the right political mindset and political will, and then in order to think about it, and then we are doing this talk show every week. And in this your discussions, it might be different from Seattle with the way you are thinking, but then politically kind of like discussions are the same. This is what I assume. And then we are young people, and that's why sometimes young people think, why do you want to come together if we are separated? Why? We don't want to be together. Like Seattle, like Ko has said earlier, we will live differently. We will live separately. If we live together, then this kind of knowledge, this kind of thinking, this is what the young people are thinking. And then when we talk about political negotiation, these are some like we cannot negotiate, and then young people are very tired in their thinking as well. They don't want to discuss about this anything, no negotiation, live separately. In Kachin as well, for example, like if we go on strike, for example, so our slogan, our sign, when we talked about federalism, are we still wanting to be together? Are we still wanting to come together as a state? This is the debate between our young people. So this is something we are with, and And then with regards to the LGBT, and then in the past, LGBT are socially excluded, socially guilty people seen as these politically, socially guilty. And what we're thinking is that religiously we don't want the LGBT people, but then we have them in our family, like you have sexual different sexual orientation. If we have this, like are we going to excommunicate these family members? This kind of question are being asked right now, and this is the way like young people are thinking, without the same as in the past. So this is something, and therefore our discussions for the panelists, these are the discussion right now. And then we have some participants who wanted to ask questions. The first one is like Mount Tonya. So sorry, Supin. The third one is one person raised. Soba Ule raised his hand. So first, Mount Tonya, please switch on your microphone and discuss.
Hello.
Can you hear my voice? Yes, I can. It is not the discussions, but it is not the question. But what I would like to say is the first one is that when we are talking about federal states, Putin or Hein, my brother also, and then one of my, it might be the same. In the past, like quickly speaking, our politics, I'm not going to talk about the states here. So in this map, we've been living together, or like city states. So we have lived, for example, Monshan. In the past, we lived like only Penlong Agreement era. Then Penlong Agreement seems to be our problems now. So like Gordon or Hein said, like we can stay separately by ourselves. When we are together, then it is a huge problems. Like only thousands of people are there, and then I train them, and then their concerns in this era, how they can be eliminated, like they have to fight both sides, and then so the majorities are controlling them, and then in this era as well, it could be that they approach the SAC. So this is about the federal state. So I think that like it will be good that they have like separate. So it is not you can like go to Leh or Karenni state, like get your own state, £1 state or Shan federal state. It is good, and then this is what I accept. This is one thing. And then when we talked about the minorities, so my thinking will be different from other people. What I would like to say is that so we are thinking about the people, and then this is a problem. In a country, it is not just only people. There are also other animals, living creatures. We only think about the living, the human beings, and therefore we like it is kind of like the system that we're thinking. So in nature, so we have like the majorities eat the minority. So the food change, and so they eat it only to survive. They eat, so it's kind of like elimination is kind of like genocides are in place. It is because of human being. It is because of the human being. A lot of other living creatures are becoming extinct. It is therefore we cannot just think about human beings when we talked about the state. And then right now, Kachin, like in Kachin as well, you are the moderator here, Kachin, and then there are a lot of problems with the rare earth. On the other hand, people are having a lot of problems with the natural resources as well. So in different states, we have this. And then the way we approach thinking about not only human, but then other issues need to be considered as well. Otherwise, we will not have places to stay, and then we will be all getting poisons, and then we will have to buy air to breathe in. It is not just that thinking about human being, but then we have to think of other things as well. If we kind of like go further quickly, then we cannot think about a federal state. We have to think about being separate. Thank you very much. The idea is, and personally, I am so tired and about the politics, and then in this, I'm disappointed with the politics, and then in rare earth, and so this is a huge case as well in our state as well. We're seeing this, but then we are working on the federal issues, but then on the other hand, we have to work on this at the same time, but there is no, the groups who do not take their responsibility and who are not accountable. It is the reason why people on the ground are being suffer from so many issues. So like Mount Tonya said, like, so just separate ourselves. We live in our own group, and then by when we're saying this, like Dr. Tony was saying, politically, the natural resources, it has to, the minority, it has to guarantee, the constitution is also needed. So the thinking are a lot, so many thinking. Thank you very much for being part of the discussions. And then we have other, another participant, Subin. The floor is yours. Please switch on your microphone and discuss. I can hear you. Thank you very much. My name is Subin. And so I got a lot of idea listening to this. I have two questions. One is, everyone has discussed about this, about the federalism, and people talked about it, like the Burmese, like get a federal state, a federal unit, and then will you be a federal unit? And then, so my first question is that the majorities are thinking about this. This is a hot debate, like where is that Burmese will be given a state. So it is also an ethnic federalism, and then if it is based on other ethnicities, like most of the countries are failing, and then this is the researchers, like for example, Ethiopia, Nigeria, there has been discussions about that, and then in some instances, and then so it will be like dual power, and then the majority will be there. So my concern is that the nationalists will be kind of like given more pushes, and then they will become nationalists, something like Mabata based on the ethnicities, and this kind of politics will be strengthened, and therefore this is like my basic concern. So it is kind of like risky. So and then what is your concerns, and then how things are like Burma state, it is like good, or if it is like this, then this will be good or not. And then Siatin Sohain also discussed about this, like if we have our confederate, then it will be best. This idea is a very progressive idea, and in some states are aiming for that. But then in practical challenge, if it is like this, like what about the world with this recognize us as a state? If it is not recognized, then everything will become a failed state and then will collapse again. So this is the first question. Second, it might not be directly relevant, but then what I was thinking is that in Myanmar revolution right now, our neighboring countries like China, Thailand, to what extent they are important, NUCC, NUG, and then other ethnic armed organization, like the relationship with these neighboring countries, what is important, can they persuade these countries to be part of them, and then what these country plays in the role in order to this revolution to be successful. For example, Thai, China, and India, what kind of relationship do they have with which groups? Can they persuade them? And then in the foreign policies of these groups, and then can they kind of like approach these countries as well? To what extent? So can you please discuss about this? Thank you very much. So right now, so and then so so for the federalism, and then how can we do so? This question is what and then what Subin asked, the questions that Subin asked. So these two questions, I would like to request Dr. Nway to answer this, please. And then the next one question is that it is like for NUG. The question is that 1982 citizenship law is to be abolished. It has been delayed. So why this question? So NUG itself is NUG itself would like to discriminate the minorities because of this. Can we assume it that way? And then there has been equality, but then 1982 citizenship law has has not been abolished, and therefore, do you think that equality will really be embraced under this kind of group? So, like this, Supreme, may I invite Dr. Nway to answer this? Thank you. And
so Dr. Nway, please answer these questions, and then I will give another chance to Guruji to answer. Thank you for the question. I would like to start from the last question. So NUG, and that why is NUG reluctant to abolish 1982 Citizenship Act? That something is, I'm not part of the NUG yet, so I'm not involved in the NUG. So, I mean, I'm sure the members of the NUG will know better the reason why. And we are also doing advocacy to the extent that we can. However, I think in terms of Ministry of Human Rights of the NUG, as far as I know, and I have always done the interview, and I also had to ask the questions, and and did a survey with them as well, and that the question, or should they said 1982 the citizenship so what we have received they said this should be entirely abolished, and that's ours as well. They have interviewed us as well, but so far we haven't seen anything yet. They haven't announced anything yet, and in the future they ask us again, like what do we think of the 1982 citizen, and then we also have issued some statements. We also do that workshops, and that in the workshop and the statements, and we also have sent it to the NUG government as well, and that policy decision making is their part, that we do what we can, and we do what we can to inform them as well, and that I think it is also depend on the attitudes of the personal attitude as to be to to highlight the importance is that when it comes to the minorities, and that often that that if we look at that religious that political leaders and that political leadership, they seem quite weak as well, although they may claim that federalism, and that and right now Myanmar doesn't have a choice. That is because after this, and the rebuilding we need to do is that it is important that not even the federal democracy, it should be democracy will come later, because if we say federal democracy will also come together, but it is important to look at the reality of Myanmar, what is happening in Myanmar, and that, like the way Go Subin has described, it is important because in the current situation, because after the revolution is over, once the Myar has been removed from power, to build the federalism is a major challenge for us. It is important for us to work on it, and because it's my personal opinion, because it's a major challenge. Because let's say the revolution is over, and if we want to build the federalism, then it is important the nature of the federalism is that you need to have a central unit, and there's the federal units every country, and that there is only one federal army, and that there is only a federal foreign policy as well, and that there is also single that in terms of when it comes to financial management, such as like many financial management, then central government has a power. So when it comes to defense or the management of the military, it is important to establish the federal army, and that there must be only one military inside military. Like today we have the different organizations like the Kachin, you have the Htoi army, you also have others. All these will have to be part of the. If you tell them that, well, you have to give them the weapons, or you have to join the federal army, then they wouldn't, because there is no trust. And that right now, the fact that if you look at it, it is important to be realistic as well, and that if you look at what is happening, you are invited to the political dialogue and the peace talk only if you have the weapons, that only you have military power, and that concept is deeply ingrained. So it is important that for the revolutionary forces and the ERO, we need to be we have to be careful, is that because of the purpose of bearing weapons is what reason. And for the ethnic community, if you look at, and then that ethnic communities have picked up weapons because they want to have self-determination. That is their purpose, and that's the purpose of them bearing weapons in that case. And then that if once they can implement the self-determination, then they need to reconsider, do they still need to bear weapons or not. And that's something PDF and ERO will reconsider, to go back to the beginning and think for the past 70 years they have been bearing weapons for 20 years, and they feel that they are being recognized because of they have the weapons in hand, but their goal is for the political objective, and that if it is for the political purpose, and that if the political purpose has been reached, if the political purpose is achieved, then it is important whether that armed resistance is still necessary. It is important to review whether they be able to give up the weapons, or whether they be able to reintegrate into that centralized force as well. And this is something that the revolutionary fighters and the EROs will need to consider, because that is extremely important. So that's why if we want to look back, and that to go to federalism, and that Myanmar will need, before going to federalism, Myanmar will definitely need to go through a confederate as well. Like Go Subin has said, that maybe like Otonya also together, maybe if some people want to go separate, go their own way, they have the right to do so. Yes, they have the right. They need to understand that they have the right. Whatever happens, I think it is also important that if we look back on the root cause of the problem of Myanmar, it is important to recognize that before Myanmar gained independence, like political leadership, their political will was not genuine, and that's why that there has been that in a country of diverse minorities in Myanmar, we have problems, and that and then the military was able to step in, because the key stakeholders were in conflict because of the lack of the genuine political will, and the military abused the situation, military exploited the situation, they seized the situation, and to their advantage, and now they use the deep propaganda machine, and they have formatted people into their way of thinking. So people are thinking their their propaganda is the, people think that what the propaganda has been, they believe in the propaganda. So in that's why it is important for all of us to recognize what is happening in Myanmar. The biggest issue of Myanmar is that the military has been using the dividing role so that they can hold on to their power. So during a Kenyan period, you also know that even among the current community, divided among the current community have been divided into Buddhist and the Christian community as well, and that they have caused factions and everywhere. That's part of the dividing rule of the military. It is important to recognize that, and that it is important to also to understand who is the real problem, who is the real one behind this as well. It only then will know that we'll be able to identify root cause, and we'll be able to address the issue as well. The general public or the Myanmar are not to be blamed. Kachin are not to be blamed. Muslims are not to be blamed. Christians are not to be blamed. Every one of us are in this situation. Every one of us has been are the victims of it as well. So it is important to understand that. And that, if we are trying to find a solution, I think it is important to be able to first done a good diagnosis, and then we know what's the root cause, and then we find the right treatment for the right for the symptoms that we have identified as well. So we may have a different perspective, we may see things differently, but it is important for all of us to see things also in the same way as well. And that the question had LG asked why is NUG reluctant to abolish 1982 law? The policy decision making is, of course, it is in the hands of NUG as a political front line of this revolution. But at the same time, on the other hand, in the situation where they are reluctant to announce that abolishment, and then we can also others will say, can we trust them? That, of course, that is a very valid question. We have demanded democracy for many years. We have asked for the democratic rights, but although we have been asking for the democracy, our prejudice and that our ideology have been formatted by the successive dictators. So we have been educated and they're trained into this kind of thinking. So that although we may be asking for democracy, and we talk about needing to restore democracy in Myanmar, and yet we don't want to abolish that dictatorial kind of law, which is like Citizenship Act, and that is not been done. So the democratic transition is challenging, not just for Myanmar, for many countries. Whenever we try to transition, democracy should be democracy for all. And if this democracy is only for majority, because that's also one of the drawbacks of the democracy. Democracy is one of the important political systems. Myanmar democracy bring development, but the weakness of the democracy is through the decision of the majority. So often the majority has an upper hand against a minority, and that the minority feels that they are not being taken into consideration, and sometimes democratic government can even cause more human rights violations, even more than the dictator, because of what we call that majority because of the majority rule issue as well. And that so in that sense that if you look at 2007, like Dangote crisis, or the case of Htoi, all these issues are happening. We had a lot of religious conflict in Myanmar. I am a person of Islamic faith, but because of the religious conflict, at the same time that during under the democratic government, we are even more insecure and not safe under democratic government. But in 2021 coup happened, I said something. What I said was, that NLD joined the by-election in 2015. That all that NLD have won in the by-elections. NLD have won, and in the 2012 by-elections, they won in most of the seats as well. And that is a alarm bell ringing for the 2015 upcoming election there, because that USDP backed by the military as a proxy party. They know that as well. They need to do something because they know that by-election results show the NLD is going to win by a landslide in the upcoming major election as well. And they were used, and they had to use a religious conflict as a way to control the country. And I was even that speaking at this university, and then in a week the religious conflict happened. And that doesn't mean, I'm not trying to to show off. What I'm saying is that as a minority, you only know that what are the challenges of the minorities are, the privilege the majority has. Only when you are minorities, you know that as well. So on the other hand, military is trying to promote nationalism, Buddhism. They are not nationalists. They do not adore Buddhism as well, and that they also wouldn't hesitate to oppress the Burma or the Buddhists as well. They will use an oppression or to abuse their power against anyone, anywhere. The only concern for them is holding on their power, and that is what but they use religion as a tool. They politicize the religion. They use it as a way to rally support for them to be able to maintain control. It is important to remove the military at all costs, because that will as well. Like you don't have to and then the way the growth that we are seeing with the Mabada, the extreme ultranationalist movement, as well as the others, is because of the instigation of the military. So we don't have to worry that much about that once the military is no longer in power. But on the other hand, I do understand the reservation of the minorities, that even a very unfair law like a 1982 citizenship law, if the political leaders are hesitant to abolish it, then what can we expect from them? So that is a very valid concern. But what is more important is the political will. If the political leaders have genuine political will, then we'll be able to have it. But even if they don't have the political will, we cannot give up and just by claiming that they don't have the political will. We need to do our best. We need to make efforts for our future, for the future of our generations. I don't blame the past generations. We were not able to carry out our duties, and that's why this generation is suffering under the current system as well. It is important for the actual generations present here to do our best for the future generations of Myanmar. So what I would like to, so I'm trying to respond to all the questions here. If anything is not clear, please feel free to ask me follow-up questions. Thank you, Sia, for responding to the questions. Thank you for giving a very comprehensive answer as well. I think Subin's question has already been answered. That Subin has also have raised some points. That what about the relations with the neighboring countries? If I think you had not been able to answer that question. What about what if there are small city states in Myanmar? What will happen? Will they get recognition from the neighboring countries? Regarding the recognition of the neighboring countries, I would say that if you look at the civil war in Yugoslavia from 1991 to 1997, Myanmar is not going to be turning. What happened was Croatia. There was a mosaic. The Bosnia, Croatia, different countries came out of it. But Myanmar situation and Yugoslavia situations are very different. Because Yugoslavia, the civil war is that after the dictator was taken down, then after the Croats and the Bosnia Muslims and the Croats, and then there was also the bit of a two groups of two communities are fighting each other. So there was a middle of an ethnic war as well. But if we look at in Myanmar, do we have that? No. In the normal situation, what had happened in Myanmar was more of a, and in the current situation, if you ask the Kachin community right now, I think so. You also have the Kachin ethnic, you also have Burma, and you also have Muslim from different ethnic group, and then you also have others. But do we hate each other? No, we don't hate each other, and that's the reality. But what is happening is that behind this, as I discussed before, there are those who are trying to control them, exploit them to are playing as like puppets, and these are the problem. These are the one who are causing this one. We don't have that problem. If if we can remove the military and its control, then we don't have that anymore. That if we can, that we have the right way of thought and right to equality, there will be. We don't have that as well because of we have those who are playing behind the curtain. Because we all have we're clamoring for self-determination. We all have the principles that we believe in, and that if somebody leave this Union Myanmar, if you see Kachin as a sovereign state, if that Kachin left, and that we don't want to say that Kachin they want to leave because of that they are being exploited, Kachin being rich in natural resources, and yet Kachin also is a state that has been giving shelter to many of the LGBTs as well. There are those who get rich in Kachin are the one who are also working with the military to exploit as well. It's the same for Rakhine State as well. Rakhine State is rich in natural gas and that oil and gas, and yet they are and then they are providing electricity to different countries, but they're not getting anything as well. They are selling electricity through the gas, but that doesn't go to the people or for the community as well. If we look at it, I think I don't really recommend that breaking apart several states. And if there is no way for it, we have all of us have lived together for a long time, so we see have the strong feelings of attachment as well. I was also discussing as well. It will also be hard for people to go their own way as well, because if we look at the country that is separated into sovereign state as well, it is hard to get recognition as well. Because recognition is a major challenge. If you look at Taiwan now, that Taiwan has been always wanted to leave for the authority of the China, but China is still under the one China policy as well, and that Taiwan has its own government, that in a way that they have their own military and they have their own system, and that they have democratic standards, and that when you have a government, when you have a territory, when you have a system, but does Taiwan get this recognition? It doesn't, so it is make it difficult for the Taiwan to stand up politically as well. So if you look, let's imagine Kachin. Kachin is Kachin. Let's say Kachin became a sovereign state. The Kachin is a landlocked country. So that for Kachin, I think there are also, if you look at the ethnic, if you look at it, the ethnic geopolitics, then Kachin could become, in my own personal opinion, Kachin could become a state of China as well. If you look at China, if you look at Shan State, Shan is also will become a landlocked country as well. It doesn't have access to the ocean as well. For example, Rakhine, if you look at the geopolitical position, then militarily there are also that that limitation as well. In my personal opinion, I think that being standing on their own for that, then there will be impact on the socio-economic and politics of these states as well. And that I'm not saying that there won't be benefits for them. I'm not talking about them under the military junta or the military regime. So because of the Rakhine State, and also other that we get benefits from Rakhine State, and that there should be benefits for Rakhine State from the other state as well. In the same way that we can enjoy the development of the Kachin State, and but at the same time the Kachin also enjoy from being part of the union as well. And that the fact that they are trying to rally for their own state independence is because of the oppression as well. That's also important to do that as well, and so it is important to not look at don't look at the stone, but also to do the act as well, and that it is important, and that so in the next if we look at Myanmar, that if we go on continue, that it will work. Myanmar will be in another 20 years or 10 or 20 years of civil war, and that will not reach the goal that we have set out to. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for a very valuable contribution. So I think it is also important for us to give us a lot of ideas, a lot of food for thought. Thank you for sharing a lot of ideological points as well with me. And this discussion has been incredible, and a lot of people are also very interested in it as well. And that we've been going for nearly 2 hours now because of the time constrictions. I would like to go ask the last question. So I would like to question the next question to Guru. Could you give us an answer in 3 minutes? Then I will summarize.
လူနည်းစုလူများစုအနေဖြင့် Federal မူအားသဘောပေါက်နားလေရေးလူနည်းစုအတန်ကြားနိုင်ရေးအတွက် Federal ဥ
So
ဆောင်
in order to the minorities, the majority, in order to understand about federalism, how can the leaders do about this? So I will just make it short. So for example, in the border area, like the education program, if they are implemented within the state, then these educational program, if they are implemented, like federalism awareness program, if they are in place in the places where the Burmese majority are staying, then this will be very appropriate.
Hello. Hello.
The speaker has been interrupted. The speaker have been interrupted. We no longer hear the voice of Kotin Soheng. Maybe the line was cut off. Yes. The line has been disconnected.
Okay. Okay, ဆိုတော့ကျမကိုကုရုကြီးသူလိုင်းကြသွားတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့သူခဏနေပြန်ဝင်လာတယ်
So the line was disconnected. Maybe he got reconnected later. I'm not sure. But then like what Kukuruchi has said earlier, the program in the border area awareness program, or if these are moved there, and then it will be okay. So he cannot come back. Thank you very much. So in this our program, thank you very much for giving your time listening to this program, and in the federal we discussed about this, and then so even when we think about this, and it is not just only like we have resources persons here like Dr. Nway, and then discuss not only the young people, so we have different ideas, and then we have different, this is the good thing, and it is a good potential for all of us. So in order to have a genuine federal state, when we are going to construct this in our country, since a 1947 Pillon Agreement, by taking this into consideration, and like it is not just individualism, based on individualism, but then it is very important, and we discussed about this. We have seen this as well. You will have seen it, heard it as well. And it is not just the minorities issues, different religions, and so right now we should be working together on all these issues at the same time. So in order to be the revolutionary forces where they have accountability and responsibility. So when we talked about the minorities' rights in the future, we should be able to guarantee, in order to give guarantee, then like a federal charter that could build up so we have to think about this. So in this program, thank you very much and for listening to it. And so either from the speakers or so we have like very good I hope that you will get some idea and good opinions. And thank you very much to those who are listening to this program. And thanks to the speakers who have given your time and answer our questions here as well. Let me wish you a prosperous night, and let me close the discussion from here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much that I have could have been part of it.